Hey guys, my name is Tim. I'm the master mechanic at Zeiten BMW Mobile Services, and today we have 2008 BMW 335i, which has one of the most common leaks, is the oil pan gasket leak. So this procedure is pretty much the same for all E90 chassis, but this one is a little bit more difficult than, let's say, 328i. So we'll get to it right away. First of all, we put our Ranger quickjack under the car. We're not lifting it yet. First of all, we're going to take some stuff apart on top of the car, and then going to lift it with the engine in the air and so on. Let's get to it. First of all, we're going to start with removing those plastic pieces, and we have a video for that for the E90, so check the link in the description and go watch. Top plastic is removed. Now we're going to move this air duct with the air filter box, and to do that it's standard 2 torx 20 bolts on each side. There you go. Just move it out of the way. Next thing, I would disconnect this brake booster hose. There you go. And from here as well right away. And now I already loosened those clamps right here. Those clamps. One here, the other one is right here. Pull this wiring from its spots, from the metal spots. This is gone, and now we can simply lift the air filter box out of its place. There you go. The next thing we're going to do is remove the charge pipe, and in order to do that we have one torx 30 bolt right here, the metal bracket on the throttle body right here. Also, we will have to disconnect this electrical connector, this one, and remove those pipes. So those are removed by twisting it and pulling it out. You just twist this part right here. You can see that. And the other side. We're not gonna fully remove them, so we're just gonna disconnect and leave them hanging. We just need more clearance a little bit, and I can even leave this piece attached. Well, you know what, let's take it out as well. They usually get stuck. Those came out pretty easily. Those pieces usually don't move this well, but we've been working on these cars before, so it's moving freely. But if it doesn't, you can grab it with the pliers and just move it one direction for the line. After that, you can simply lift this bracket. You can even remove it completely. It will make it easier. Let's pull this out, and now there's a one clamp right here. Okay, this is out, and this will allow me to easily access this electrical connector and take it off. Just get your pick tool ready. Slide it in right here. And there you go. Okay, the next thing, I'm going to clear out this area because we will need to remove the belt, because I will have to move the AC compressor out of the way to remove the oil pan. So in order to do that, I'm gonna prepare everything to get the fan out of the way. So here's your standard connector. I'm just gonna put my big tool right here and right here so we can move it out of the way. It's best to do with a screwdriver. I had my pick tool in my hand already, so I'll take it out of its spot, move it out. The next thing we're gonna do is, we're gonna take this hose out of its spots. There you go. I'm not gonna remove it completely. We don't need to drain any coolant. The next thing for this part, preparation, there's a Torx 25 bolt right here. It's holding the fan to the radiator. We're gonna remove that, and there is also plastic tab right here, the one that you just press and move the radiator out of the way. I mean the electric fan out. So this tab right here, if you can see it, I'm not sure. I'm not gonna do anything with this, but we also have one Torx 25 bolt at the bottom that connects the transmission oil cooler to the electric fan. So we're gonna remove that when we lift the whole car up. Also, we're gonna remove the motor mounts nuts. The one is right here. We have clear access to this 16mm nut. So we're gonna remove that. The other one is directly on the other side, but you barely can see it, but when you do the job, you definitely can fit in the 16mm socket with extensions and take it from the top. If not, you can do it from the bottom as well. So no big deal if you can't. So everything is prepared for the car to be lifted. Everything we need to do from the top, basically almost everything. Here's the extension set I use for the passenger side motor mount. It's the longest one, the next in line, and two kind of shortest ones with the 16mm. In the end, it's all bends like this. So what are you gonna do is you're gonna put this extension set right here, and then you just kind of feel it on the bolt, and then you remove it. I already did, but it's possible to do from the top. It's completely fine. And then you use your magnet to pick the knot. So now we're gonna lift the car using the Ranger quickjack. It runs from 12 volts, and let's get to it. First thing first, we're gonna remove the splash shield. It's as you well know, 8mm bolts all around the perimeter. Just the front one. We don't need to touch the transmission splash shield. Well, actually we do, so we're gonna remove the transmission splash shield as well. And then we will have clear access to everything. You can see right here on the splash shield where the leak is happening. So all of this is coming from the oil pan gasket. Other leaks like oil filter housing gasket or the valve cover gasket, they don't usually leaking down. They cannot reach this spot basically. Valve cover gasket is burning off on the exhaust. That's the usual. It's rarely reaching the ground, and the oil filter housing gasket is burning on the way down on the block. So it's very rare when anything other than the oil pan gasket can cause this. Of course, there's a front crankshaft seal and the rear main seal, but in my experience, like, it's not very often happening, especially here in California, especially on this mileage around 100,000. This one is 130,000 miles. So if you see the leak on the ground, that's most likely an oil pan gasket. So both shields removed. Now we're gonna remove this little pieces to free up this reinforcement bar. It's a 8 millimeter right here. Right here is 10 millimeter plastic nut, and there is also one right here, 8 millimeter. So 3 8 millimeter bolts and one 10 millimeter nut. And then just take it out. It will allow us to, it gives access to this 16 millimeter bolt on this reinforcement bar right here. It's 6 in total to go all along, and then it's the same one on the other side. So as I said, we're gonna remove this reinforcement bar. It's 6 16 millimeter bolts all around it, right here in the middle and on the other side. So now we're going to remove this Torx 25 bolt that holds the transmission air oil cooler to the fan, electric fan. It's Torx 25. This will allow us to remove the fan, and we definitely need to do that. Now we're gonna move the fan out of the way. There's this plastic tab. And there is also part of a charge pipe in there connected, but I don't think we need to move it. Just take your time, don't rush it, go slow, little by little. You take it out, don't break this hose, so be careful with that. If you're not comfortable, if your hose is old and rusty, disconnect it, put it aside, so you don't have to replace it after all. There you go. Now we're gonna get ready to remove the belt, the main belt, and in order to do that we will have to disconnect two Torx 30 bolts. One of them is right here and the other one is right next to it right here, which we don't have for some reason, I don't know why. So here's the one we're gonna remove. This will allow us to move the piece of a charge pipe out of the way to lose tension on the belt. You don't have to remove it completely, just get it loose like that, and we'll create just enough room. There you go. So here's an opening, here's the Torx 60 where we're gonna put it in and take the belt out. So I got the small extension and the socket in there. I'm gonna turn it a little bit and just slide the belt off, and that is enough. The engine support bar is in place. Those are the locations where you can put it on. Here's the regular tow hook. Let's put it right here, right next to oil filter housing. And this is it. Just twist and turn and lift the engine. We need that in order to keep the engine in the air and drop the subframe. So right now we're gonna get down and drop the subframe. In order to remove the subframe, we have to remove 6 18mm bolts. Those are long one. One is right here. It's all symmetrical. It's the same on the other side. The next one is in the middle, right here. And the next one is right here in the back. It's all exactly the same on the other side, so we're gonna lose them first and then remove the corner ones and leave the middle, and then, well, the best way to do it is put the jack in the middle and remove the last bolts and lower the subframe gradually. Here's the all bolts are removed. The middle ones are the longest. The back ones are the shortest, so all bolts are different. You can't mess it up. Well, I hope not. And now I'm gonna lower the subframe with the jack going down. Go slow, don't rush it. There you go. This is the normal, how it should go down. It's totally fine. It's not supposed to go all the way. Leave it on the control arms. Now is a good time to drain the oil, so that's what we're gonna do. It's a 17mm plug right here. Just position your oil pan accordingly. There you go. I'll let it drain. We're also going to remove the filter right away and let it drain completely, because this job requires the oil change, obviously, because we're going to drain all the oil and then refill it with the fresh one, so why not change the filter as well. While we're draining the oil, we're going to replace the filter, and as usual, I just want to point out some things. Replace those O-rings. That's the one. And here's another one. Every single oil change, do that. It's important. It comes with every oil filter. There's a kit like this. One O-ring, second O-ring, and the crush washer. So why not replacing it? I'm telling this because we've seen too many cars without those O-rings replaced, leaking massive amount of oil all around the engine. So first thing we're going to remove is the power steering pump. I think I told you guys before it's AC compressor. It's not, my mistake. So here's the power steering pump. The first bolt is the one in the back, and I'm using the short extension and E12 socket, and this is where it goes. I already loosened it, so this is where I'm gonna start. The other two bolts are in front. I'm gonna show you this as well. This one is movable almost by hand, or I can take the smaller ratchet and continue taking it off. Let's see. Yeah, almost movable by hand, so I'm just gonna take the smaller one and remove it entirely. The next bolt is right here, the bottom one. It's also E12. I'm gonna lose it first. Okay, and the last one is right here. No need to use any extensions. So those two bolts, we have the pump almost moving. I'm gonna use the smaller ratchet to take them off completely, and then we will be able to take the pump out of the way. It's the main reason we have to do it is because it's attached to the oil pan. Without removing it, we can't take the oil pan out. So that's the main thing. On the N51, N52 engine, we don't have such problem, and we don't even need to remove the electric fan. So this is the complication only with the N54 engine, and this is a 335 2008. So it's harder than on 328 or 128 or 528. On all the N54 engines, you will have to do that. The pump is out. We don't need to disconnect anything. This is where it goes, so it's completely movable. We can put it wherever we want it. I mean, depending on the hoses extension and whatnot. The next thing we're gonna be removing is the bracket holding the transmission lines. It goes all around the oil pan. So here's the first one. It's a 10mm nut, it's in a kind of a bracket, so we remove the nut. There is a bolt left in there, so you just move the line and remove it as well. I think it's 3 of those along the way. It's one right here, should be one in the middle. Let me see where. It's just 2, so it's one right there and one right here by the motor mount, and this is it. This will allow us to move a little bit the transmission lines. We don't need to disconnect them at all, just move them a little bit. So the nut is out, and I took the other one out as well, right there in the back. You'll see it clearly. So how does it move? You just move it down like that and remove this bolt. It's a 10mm bolt. It goes in some sort of bracket on the oil pan, and you do the same in the back, and you have your transmission lines completely free. They are flexible right here with the transmission oil cooler, so we'll be able to move them out of the way in order to remove the oil pan. Now we're almost ready to take all the bolts out, and I'll show you how to do so as well. Now we're going to remove the bolts that hold the oil pan to transmission housing. Those are E10s. First one goes right here, they're not too tight. The other one is right next to it, right here. And the third one, there is 3 of them in total, is, I don't know if we can move right here. It's let me show you. It's right there, the top one, right above the transmission lines. Here's the third bolt, using 3 extensions, all different length, and there you go. This is coming out. I'll show you exactly what kind of extensions they are just in a moment. There you go. So here's the long one, and then shorter. Usually when you get the kit, you get all 3 of them. And the E10, those are E10 bolts that coming from the transmission housing to the oil pan. So now we're ready finally to get into removing the oil pan bolts. Those are E12. I think it's 26 or 28 of them all around, I'm not sure, but this is where they are. There is some hard ones. You also have some access from the top for the top bolts, but I'm mostly going to be using this extension, or sometimes I'm just going to be using this ratchet with the movable head, so we can move it around and in hard to reach places. I'm going to remove most of the bolts without any issues, but those that will be basically troublesome for you, I will definitely show you how to deal with those. Here's the first bolts that are somewhat complicated. You can take them from the bottom. Well, actually you can, but it's easier to get this bolt from the top. As you can see, it's right here. Everything before that, all the bolts before that, you can see I removed them from the bottom without any complications, just using some extensions. And the other one I'll take out too, I think. No, just this one. So just this one from the top, and the rest of the bolts I'll take from the bottom. We'll show you that as well. So here's one of the complicated bolts. I got 3 extensions here, and I already put it on the bolt. I can see the bolt from here, but can't really reach it, so it's out. So this is one of the complicated bolts. The next one is right next to it, so it's a line of them right there, but further you move, easier it gets. There are some bolts from up here. The next one, as I said, is right next to it. I think I'm just gonna remove the motor mount. Those are E12 as I remember. Yeah, there's 2 bolts holding the motor mount. E12 bolts. Give me a second. Just to make it easier, more access. Okay. Just take it out of the way completely. So now we will have more room right here, so we can access the previous bolt, and the one right next to it, it's along this groove right here on the oil pan. I don't know if you can see it, but this is kind of the place where you can align your extension to the bolt. I'll show you in a moment. I'm gonna be using a medium size extension. This is it, and this is where it goes. It goes right under the transmission lines and fits right in. Also, removing of the motor mount gives you access to this hole right here, so we can do this and now easily remove this bolt. And there you go. The other two, I think I'm going to be using the long extension on those. The one is right here, pretty straightforward. It's right here. The other one is right next to it. It's this similar groove right here. So on the oil pan, like on the previous one. So we'll start with that. We'll take the medium extension. There you go. And here's the almost the last one. The last one is a bit in the other place, but this is the final one in the top row of the oil pan, which is, in my opinion, the hardest, and well, to be honest, it is the hardest. The next one, the bolt I left, is right here, this one right there, and I'm just gonna be using the ratchet with the E-socket right on top, so because there is not enough room in here and there's not enough holes, so we can't use any extensions, so I'm just gonna be going by hand in there. All the bolts are out. Now we're gonna be removing the oil pan. As you can see, it's of course kind of stuck in there. It's not moving even all the bolts are out. I think it's the best if you remove those oxygen sensor connectors from the bracket and just leave it hanging like this, because when we're going to be moving the oil pan this way, this is going to be on the way and it might create a problem for you. So in order to take the oil pan, let me see, there you go, just pry it somewhere, and there you go. Now we can remove the subframe a little bit and the oil pan with the angle out of the way. So in order to get the oil pan completely out, we have to simultaneously basically move the subframe and the oil pan. We remove the back first, and then we go back to the front and move that, because there is a oil pump in the front of the engine, so we have to move the oil pan around this oil pump and remove it entirely. So it has to have some room. As you can see, the back portion is out of the way. The gasket gets stuck a little bit. Yep, I'm gonna remove it by hand right now so it's not. Yeah, as you can see, the pump is out from the back, which is great. The gasket is removed, so it's not on the way of the process. And move your power steering pump because it's also kind of on the way. And now we're all around the, oh, there you go. Also, don't be afraid to lift your engine a little bit higher. It's not necessarily that you will have to do so, but you can do it from top on your engine support bar. Push this away. Now, as you can see, the oil pan is out. Let's replace this gasket. And absolutely 100% there's going to be oil dripping from the open spots because you never can drain all the oil, and the oil pan will have some oil as well. Let's take it out and see. We're also going to inspect the old gasket. So here's the oil pan. As you can see, there's a little bit of oil left in here. The drain plug is already in with the new crush washer that we got with the filter. Here's the old gasket, and you can see by the pieces inside the oil pan and the way it's like, it's completely brittle. It's cracks like that. It's this what makes it leak. As this is gone. 130,000 miles on the car, and it's a 12-year-old car, so I would say it's within the normal wear and tear. Like, I just saw cars with a 150, same condition, some with 140 in way better condition, but you will never know if it was replaced before or not. So I would say the oil pan gasket lasts approximately 120 to 140,000 miles. That's the basic range of replacement. What are we gonna do with this is clean it all out, take all the pieces out that are in the oil pan. It would be a good idea to replace the O-ring on the oil level sensor right here. So yeah, this is it. I'm just gonna clean it all out, get the new gasket, put it back in. We'll definitely show you the way to do it. There's also the process, a little bit about the process, how to remove this oil pan, because it is frustrating. It is kind of difficult because you will have to raise the engine. As you can see right here, I still have some room to go with the engine going up, but also make sure that in the back you have some room too. Don't just make mistake where you keep lifting it and it's going in there and breaking stuff. So you definitely want to reasonably lift it, reasonably drop the subframe. The subframe goes all the way, but you don't want to push too hard on it, so the power, not the power steering, the steering shaft just gonna comes off, and it's gonna be a pain in the butt to put it back in. Happened to me before, definitely. It just takes some extra time to do the job, so make sure that stays in place. But overall, just take your time with the oil pan. You just have to wiggle it around a little bit. Just push the subframe forward. This one, the oil pan is back a little bit, and you're just gonna get it done. For this job, we're gonna be using L-ring oil pan gasket. I think the full name is L-ring Klinger, something along the lines. So yeah, this pretty solid gasket. We use them a lot on BMWs. This is the way it goes. So first of all, what are we gonna do? I think I might even try something new here. We might put the gasket on with the bolt so it stays in place, maybe 2 bolts, so it's and then we're gonna be putting the oil pan, remove those bolts so it's not on the way, because what I usually do is I put the gasket right here without any silicone. Important, We do not need to use any silicone in here, not a slightest amount, like nothing at all. That would be the best if we because we don't need to put the gasket on the oil pan with the silicone, let it sit, let it just kind of be in there, because putting the oil pan back, that would be the same hassle as taking it out. So it's gonna be tight, it's gonna be grinding here and there, and you don't want to damage the gasket because it's easy, it's rubber, it's like easy to break. So first of all, the way I usually do it, I put the gasket in there, kind of in place, but I don't put the bolts in, so it just hangs around in there, and then I put the oil pan. Now I think I'm gonna try the new thing, just put some bolts in there in the gasket and just kind of lock it in place. We'll see. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna put the gasket right here, and I'll put a couple bolts I think right here and somewhere easy in the front, so it's stays like this and it's not on the way of the oil pan at all, but it's also in a place where it's supposed to be. So let's just put this one in. You can put it all the way, well, as much as you can, because no need to make it tight or anything. Just want to make sure that the gasket doesn't hang around too much, hang down. So here's the one, and we're gonna put another one. Let me get in front here. Yeah, I'll just put it right here in the first corner in front of the palm. And same thing. So, and I think I need another one. And yeah, I'll just put, let me see where it would be easy. Right here, the one that we can access from the top. I'll put another bolt right there, so it's easily removable. So 3 bolts in total, just to make the oil pan gasket sit in place. We're gonna be taking them out, of course. Yeah, looks pretty good. Let's put the gasket, the oil pan back in place. Kind of similar to what we've been doing before. Just put it like that. Work around the transmission lines and the power steering pump. It's kind of getting a little bit hard. There we go. Alright, make sure all those wires are out of the oil pan before you put them kind of in. So we're almost all there. Now we gotta move the subframe a little bit. There you go. So now the oil pan is not fully in place, but we managed to get it all around the major parts and components, so it's gonna be pretty straightforward from here. At this point I'm gonna be removing the bolts from the gasket because it's not gonna be damaged or bent during the installation, so we can just take the bolts out and continue with installation of the oil pan with the gasket already. So I removed the bolts that were holding the gasket in place. Now I want to align the oil pan gasket with the oil pan. In order to do that, you just need to align all the holes. Yep, you see half moons there. Those holes are just fine in here, so we can hold it. And this in the front. Yep, so it seems like a done deal. And of course, when we move it up, it slides out of the way, but that's alright. That's normal. We're approximately where we're supposed to be. Now I'm gonna be holding it in one place, and now we're gonna put the bolt right here. So yeah, you can also move the gasket a little bit by this rubber piece outside. So I'm just gonna be putting this one bolt right here, not all the way, just a little bit, so it kind of makes everything in place. And the other one somewhere in the front, everything is still very movable, and we can readjust the gasket, align it with holes in the pan and the gasket. And we're not gonna make anything tight before we put all the bolts in there and make sure they all going in completely normal. So yeah, we'll continue to do that by hand, one by one. Just put them in, do a couple turns, a few of them, make sure the bolt goes. And basically what's gonna happen, the bolt will realign the gasket and the pan the way it's supposed to be. So take your time, don't rush it. Definitely, there is, in this job, there's nothing you want to rush. That's it. Okay guys, so all the bolts are in, they're moving freely, everything's fine. All here, the oil pan is still movable basically, but we're gonna tighten all the bolts now. Basically we're gonna make them all the way in, and then I'm gonna put those side bolts that connect the oil pan to the transmission housing. And this is it. After we put those bolts right here, we are going to make everything tight on the oil pan, and then we're gonna make the bolts on the side of the transmission housing tight as well. So the first priority here is to put this oil pan in place, make it tight so it doesn't leak, and then tighten those right here. Everything is in place, all the bolts are tight. All the oil pan bolts and the transmission housing to oil pan bolts are tight, so everything's done. Don't forget to plug in your oil level sensor and put back the sensors from those ones. Those are oxygen sensors. This is the way it goes. Now I'm gonna be putting the motor mount back in the spot, and it's pretty straightforward. Those two big E12 bolts going in. Let's see. Should be somewhat like that. Yep. So this one goes right here, and this one right here. There you go. After that, Okay, make sure everything is in place. Now we can make it tight. Alright, after that we can basically lift the subframe up, but before I do that I want to put definitely the power steering pump back on, which I show you how, and the transmission lines brackets back on, which is no big deal and real easy to do. But let's move back to the power steering pump. So as you remember, the power steering pump is held by 3 bolts. Those are E12 bolts. I'm gonna be putting the front lower one first, so it's in place. Then let me see the top one. So now the pump is basically stable. Just hand tighten them a little bit. And now the third one. Everything is hand tight. We don't need to force anything. Everything's real easy to access. Just as usual with the different position bolts, just hand tight everything first and then tighten them. And that's what we're gonna do. So everything's done from underneath, and now we're ready to lower the engine basically. So we're gonna let it go down, and after that we're gonna raise the subframe to meet it the engine. And well, the hardest basically things to do in there is to put the motor mounts into the holes in there to make them fit. Let's get it done. Okay, so when we're lifting the subframe, we gotta make sure that those pieces meet the subframe holes. And as you can see, the subframe is very movable. So the usual thing we can do is to put some kind of long screwdriver in there and align it. Well, I got this thin extension, it's 1/4. What we can do is to put it right here, as you can see, and into the hole. So when I lift the subframe, I can readjust it just like that. And we're gonna take a look at the other side. The other side is not fully in there yet. Let me see right here. There you go. The other side seems to be going just fine. And it seems to be fully in. Let's just check if our motor mounts got in place just fine. Yeah, this one is all right completely. The other one, I don't see it, but hold on. Yep, the other motor mount is fine as well. So just make sure you check that. That's obviously important, and the engine will not sit well if you don't do that. Now when we have the jack all the way in there, we can fully release the engine support and let the engine sit fully on the jack. While the jack is in there, of course, now we're gonna put all 6 18mm bolts in there. Remember, the longest ones are in the middle, the shortest ones are in the back, and the medium size are the front ones. Here's the long one. it goes in the middle. I'm just gonna hand tie it for now. Then, oops, sorry, the short one in the back. It's not going fully in just yet. We need to make sure that everything is good on this end so the subframe sits well, and it does, but we need to tie it first. I would start with the middle ones, make them tight, and then the back ones, then the front, because the front is the most aligned because it has those pieces where it should come, and this is the way to go. So I just got the middle, the longest bolts in fully, and this is what I was talking about. Look at this now. Couldn't put it in, and now the back bolts are completely fine and going in just as easy as they should. So now we're going to proceed with tightening all of them and getting back on top to put the motor mounts bolts in. I mean nuts. In order to put the motor mount nut, it's a 16mm, just a reminder. I'm going to be putting the passenger side from the bottom. So I'm going right here, and I'm just going to feel it right there. Yep, there it is. And all I need to do is just barely put it on the thread, and I can tighten from the top. Almost, and it's a better view from here. I think I can fit another hand in there. Let's see. Yep. It's really hard to do from the top, but with the use of magnet it's possible as well. Alright, it's in. I put it almost fully on. Now I'm gonna use the same extensions as I used to take it off, now just to tighten it up. The other one, the driver's side motor mount, is fully exposed in there, so I don't think you guys need to see that, how to do. Now when everything's tight, basically all we need to do is put everything back together. And first I'm going to start with the belt. The N54 belt diagram is very confusing at times, and you can mess it up real easy. So before you take it off, just take a picture of it, make sure you make everything the same as it was before. Otherwise, like I already put everything back where it's supposed to be, so we're just gonna apply some tension. There we go. And this is it on our end. Everything seems to be going around just fine. So yeah, this is it. The next step is to put this charge pipe back in place. We have only one bolt, it's torx 30. You will have another one right here, and after that we're gonna put back the fan. Okay, in order to put the fan back, once again, don't break this hose right here. We're just going really slow, not rushing anything, making sure everything is where it's supposed to be. And when we reach the transmission oil cooler, I will go underneath and move it a little bit and make sure the fan continues to pull down. As you see, those parts right here is where the fan locks. And the rests. The fan is all the way down. Once again, take your time. It goes in slowly. You will have to go from top to bottom to move some things out of the way. And then don't forget to put back this transmission oil cooler back in place. It's torx 25 once again. And we're gonna get it all the way down. There you go. And now put it back. So everything is in place. Now we're gonna put the charge pipe back in. Nice and simple. As you remember, we disconnected this electrical connector last, so now we're gonna connect it first. We're gonna go from this end first. There you go. And now into the, oh no, hold on. The bolt goes on top. We'll take it out. And now put it onto the throttle body, and don't forget the bracket. The bracket goes right here. So this is done. This sits well. I'm gonna put back this Torx 30 bolt and put these pipes back in. Once again, those are simple to put in. Just slide them in here, and then all you gotta do is turn it counterclockwise to lock them up. There you go, right here. And this one is clockwise. Those are counterclockwise. This is it. After that, I'm just gonna put back the plastic, the cover, and don't forget to fill up the oil. It's 6.9 quarts for this engine. And we're gonna start the car, leave it in the air, see if there is any obvious leaks, and after that, put it back. The job is done, so this is what it takes to replace the oil pan on E90, E91, E92, 93 BMW. It's 335. It's a little bit more complicated than on 328s, let's say. It's also the same procedure pretty much exactly on 135, 535, but not the XI. XI is completely different. You will have to remove the differential and front axles, and it's a different thing, even more complicated than this one. We already ran the car for a bit, so there are no leaks. There are a few components left to install. It's this reinforcement triangle bar underneath on 16mm bolts, so, and the splash shields. But other than that, it's all good. The car runs great. So I hope this video was helpful. Don't break the car. See you next time.